Hi, this is Colin Sandberg with the Endurance Collective, and I'm here for the fourth and final workout in the series of tempo workouts. These are a little bit boring, I know, but I like being able to, before we get into some more intense training, I like to start at 30 minutes and build up 40, 50, and finally 60 minutes of tempo. My feeling being that if you can do 60 minutes of tempo, you should be able to do some more intense stuff, but you need to develop the efficiency and the aerobic structure, so to speak, to do that first. So today's workout is going to be following the same format as most of the others, where we're going to do some warm-up drills, some one-legged drills, then some work at zone 2 at various cadences, and then we're going to finish off with a 60-minute tempo block. So let's get started. I'm going to talk a fair amount at the beginning for the lower intensity stuff, and probably not going to talk quite as much once the longer zone 3 interval starts, just because I'm really focusing on efficiency. I want to try to keep my heart rate down, and I don't want to have to bring down the power if I can help it. I'll do it if I need to, but I don't want to really go over my zone 3 heart rate. Ceiling of that is about 170, 171 for me. That is for me. I have a threshold heart rate of 180, so it's not going to be the same for everybody. It's going to depend on where your threshold heart rate is. I'm going to start this with a 5-minute ramp up, starting at zone 1, going to zone 2. You'll notice I'm wearing a long sleeve jersey indoors to start. It's pretty cold outside today, and my garage is not climate controlled, so it is also cold in my garage. Not quite cold enough to bring in the space heater, but cold enough to start off with a long sleeve jersey. Haven't turned any fans on yet, but I will be turning on both of my fans as I start to get warmed up here. Fans, airflow, most important part of cooling, and also that lack of cooling indoors is the number one reason why people struggle with some indoor workouts. It is the biggest method of cooling, convection, airflow. And if you're riding outside at let's say 18 to 20 miles per hour, 18 to 25 miles per hour, a lot of airflow, moving that heat away from your body. You're indoors, and you don't have any fans going, you're losing out on that. It's going to be overheating pretty quickly. On the other hand, if the air is cold, usually the last thing you feel like doing is turning on that fan. So it's a little counterintuitive. You may actually need, if wherever you're doing your indoor training has pretty cold air, you might need a little space heater to warm up the air, so you can feel comfortable turning on those fans. It's possible to be sort of freezing in your extremities, your hands, your feet, and overheating at the same time due to lack of airflow. Right. And we're going to do 3 sets of 1 minute, one-legged drills. On each leg, I'm going to go 1 minute just left leg, 1 minute both legs in, 1 minute right leg, 1 minute both legs in. So sets are 4 minutes long. I'm going to do 3 of those. If you don't feel comfortable doing 1 minute on just one leg, you can just try to concentrate on one leg to start off with. Try to hit 85% of your power on that one leg. It's got a dual-sided power meter, that's fairly easy. If you don't, just try to stay focused in your head. All right. Starting with the left leg. This is a nice low power. You want to aim for probably 70 to 90 RPM. You'll notice my RPM is only reading at half. So it's actually double that, just because of the way the stage's power meter. And it's calculating cadence with the gyroscope in there, so it's not quite accurate with one-legged drills. Now I like to do this workout with all on erg mode. But if you want to do it in regular mode, or if you have a dumb trainer, it's fine to just do it that way. Don't need a smart trainer for this. Don't need Zwift. I just kind of have it up there for reference. The important thing is to make sure you have the same power, the same cadence on both legs. Most people have one dominant leg, and you don't want that leg to work harder just because you can. I'm going to turn fan number 1 on here. I've got a remote control for my one fan. And my second fan, I actually do not have a remote control. I've got an industrial fan on the floor, and I've got it hooked up to a smart plug, so I can just turn it on with an app on my phone. nice to have the visual reminder sometimes, because it's easy to lose track of which leg you're on, especially when you're doing one leg or both legs clipped in the middle. Now, if you've been following along with this series and you've gone and done 30, 40, 50, now you're on 60 minutes, you've probably seen some improvement already in your one-legged drills. It can be really difficult at first and really highlight the differences in the two different legs. Personally, my right leg always feels easier. But these can be really difficult at first, but there's a fast learning curve, a steep learning curve. I do find that they're valuable. You can throw in really to just about any indoor workout as part of the warm-up. You do want to be careful about doing them outside. It's really easy to clip a pedal. So I would not really recommend doing them outside in general. But indoors, it's going to be really good as a warm-up, sort of an activation exercise, particularly with your hips and glutes. Cycling is a very quad dominant sport, and so doing a little bit of activation work can be very helpful. And over time, if you can improve your efficiency, meaning reduce the dead spot and your pedal stroke, which everybody has, or reduce any forces that are applying sort of power in the wrong direction. Even if you can improve that by a fraction of a percent, it can be very useful, considering most of us make millions of pedal strokes every year. I've heard some people say that they're really most useful for beginner riders, not so much for advanced or elite riders. I tend to disagree with that. I think those sort of pedaling drills are useful for everybody. But in particular, if you're somebody that has what you might feel is one really dominant leg, or a really pronounced dead spot, big muscle imbalance, like really strong quads, but really weak hip flexors, weak glutes, can be particularly useful for. Personally, as I said, I have a very dominant right leg. My left leg always feels less powerful on almost every ride. I have a dual-sided power meter. Pretty much every ride, my right side is at least a couple percent higher in terms of average power. I have a much more difficult time getting over the dead spot. You can probably visualize that even now. Much more difficult job on the left side. And I have a lot of problems with glute activation. Mainly manifests itself in the way of back pains every time I go hard. So, something I need to constantly work on. Both on the bike, with some pedaling drills, off the bike with strength training and activation drills, stretching, massage. Personally, I think my brain's just wired that way to be right side dominant, quad dominant. So basically, the more I ride, the worse it's going to get unless I am actively doing stuff to try to minimize those problems. You know, the way I look at it, a lot of people look at training as the hard part. You know, going out, doing long rides, doing intervals as the work you got to put in if you want to be fit. I kind of look at it as it's not that you not that you have to ride. Riding's the fun part. Training's the fun part for me. I mean, I love racing too, of course, but you get to ride but you got to put in some work to be able to train, to ride comfortably, train the way you want to without problems. Those problems for me never really were a major factor when I was younger, but the older I've gotten, you know, if I don't do my strength training, if I don't do activation drills, if I don't get a massage here and there, I really start to have problems quickly. So I look at it as actually one of the good things about getting older is because your body lets you know you need to do something. I'd rather have it that way than having to take years to catch up to you. Okay, so we got a 5-minute break here, and then we're going to go into a 20-minute endurance interval of various cadences. This has been the standard warm-up for this workout. And while I'm going relatively easy, I want to talk about one thing here. I'm sure that some of you know what this watch is, this Whoop band on my wrist. Measures HRV, heart rate variability. One of the signs of fatigue and recovery. So every morning it gives me a recovery score, which is based on a few different things, but primarily it's looking at my HRV, the heart rate variability. You want that to be high. You want a higher degree of variation in each heartbeat. At least as a sign of good recovery. You're fresh. If you're fatigued or sick, that will be low. Heart rate tends to stay more constant from beat to beat. Generally, not a good sign. And then the other thing would be resting heart rate. Both of those are going to be calculated. I don't know exactly how it's done because I think it's proprietary with Whoop, but it is during your sleep that these numbers are calculated. So you wake up with a score, like I said, primarily based on HRV and resting heart rate. I believe it's also based a little bit on sleep quality, how many interruptions you had in the night, how long you slept. I wake up and it gives you a score, a recovery score, and it's anywhere, I think it's 0 to 100%. Anything from 0 to 33% is red, 33 to 67% is yellow, and over 67% is green. So I think with any technology like this, these wearables in particular, it's only useful if it's actionable data. So how to use that? For me, I do not take it as the only factor, but I have it for a reason. I'm not a sponsored Whoop athlete. I pay $30 a month for this subscription, so I must believe that it's useful, right? The way I look at it, well, let me talk about the way that somebody might envision using it, which I don't. Is not the way I use it. Is maybe you wake up with a red and you say, okay, it's red, off today. If it's yellow, maybe I'll go a little easy, maybe skip my intervals, maybe just do a recovery ride. And if it's green, go for it, let's hit it. Or something along those lines. You don't really know what you're going to do until you wake up in the morning, see how you're feeling. That's not the way I use it, because I think it is important to have a bigger plan. I think you get into trouble if you just go day to day. Also, you got to take the data with a grain of salt. I think it's useful, but there are days when I've had a green score and I felt perfectly fine, and I felt bad. There are days when I had a red score and I felt perfectly fine. All right, before I go on, 20 minutes of endurance. We're going to go 5 minutes at 85, 5 minutes at 90, 5 minutes at 95, 5 minutes at 100 RPM. Keeping the same power. If you have a dumb trainer, you're going to need to shift a little bit, put it in the easier gear, as you get higher with your RPM in order to hold that same power. Okay, back to the Whoop, how I use that. The way I use it, there is sort of a threshold of where you choose to modify your workouts. And I'm talking on-the-fly decisions that you have to make, that you probably don't have a team of scientists riding behind you in a follow vehicle that can take blood readings, tell you what to do on a moment-to-moment basis. You have to make these calls. Just things like, I don't feel right. What should I do? Should I go home, just spin easy home? Should I do something different? Should I try to do lower intensity intervals, or just some endurance today? Or maybe it's, I feel really good. Should I go harder? Should I do an extra interval? Should I add in a group ride at the end of my interval session? All those things are based on how you feel. um, as well as maybe a little bit of objective data like your power and your heart rate. But there's a threshold there. Like, how bad do you have to feel before you make the call to bag your workout? How much time do you give yourself to warm up? And so for me, those Whoop recovery scores change that threshold a little bit. If I don't feel good, I'm out on a ride, but I had a score in the red. You know, I'm not going to bag a workout just because I was in the red that day. But if I'm in the red and I go out, don't feel like great on my ride, probably I'm going to think there's a reason for this. I'm probably tired. A little bit more likely, that threshold's a little closer, a little bit more likely to either just go home or just spin easy, or maybe do something a little easier. And the reverse is true. If I don't feel great and I'm in the green, probably give myself a little bit more time to warm up before I make that call or ease into the workout. And that was kind of the case this morning. That's why I bring this up. I woke up feeling really tired, but I had an excellent recovery score. I think it was 95%. You know, pretty high HRV and a low resting heart rate. So the objective data says I should feel pretty good. So today we'll see how this goes because it's the morning, having to do this workout fairly early in the morning. I'm tired, feel a little stiff. But I'm going to give myself a chance to warm into this, see how I feel. And it's tough because, okay, bringing it up to 90 here, keeping the same power. If I'm not feeling good, it's in this workout, and unless I'm extremely fatigued, I can probably still get through it. But I'm really fatigued. My heart rate might be a little depressed, or it could be elevated. But more than anything, just might feel stiff, uncomfortable, feel a lot more perceived exertion, or RPE, for the effort. And the reverse is true. If I feel good, probably it's going to feel like less effort to produce whatever power. So we'll see how that feels. If you're wondering about HRV, there's a few different devices to measure it. There are some apps on your phone where you can use the light in the back of your phone and hold your finger over it, and it'll measure HRV. Problem is, you have to pick a time to do that, and obviously it's going to be when you're awake, whereas I think a better, more controlled way of measuring that HRV is going to be when you're asleep, and probably about an hour or 2 hours before you wake up. So you need something like a watch that you wear 24 hours a day to be able to do that. The newer versions of the Apple Watch have an HRV function, but I don't know much about the details. To measure HRV, you do need something more than just a regular heart rate monitor. This, I believe, measures heart rate 100 times a second. So you need to be able to look at the individual spacing between heartbeats. You need to get really fast readings. I have a Wahoo ticker heart rate monitor now, which also can take really fast readings. But again, you have to have it on. So I'm not going to sleep with my heart rate monitor strap on. I believe that there's a couple other devices that do measure HRV. I can't really tell you a lot of the details, but how it's measured and when it takes the key measurements to give you that score are important. Devil's in the details in that. Whoop is certainly not perfect, but I think for this application, for me, works pretty well. I do want to say, you can use this as a regular heart rate monitor strap. I've found at lower intensities, all right, going up to 95 RPM now, at lower intensities, at rest, at night, sleeping, it's pretty closely matched to my heart rate strap. At higher intensities, maybe it has something to do with when I start sweating, it's not as accurate. So when I look, the reason I don't just wear this and broadcast to my computer, to my cycling computer, is it's way off for most actual exercise. But it's great for just wearing around. One other thing I will mention is alcohol throws off the numbers big time. Even, I can have one beer and it can tank my HRV. Kind of hard to say how relevant that is, because I would say normally, if I have one beer at, let's say, 6 o'clock with dinner, I don't feel like I'm destroyed the next day, but it does make a difference in my recovery scores. Now I have 2 or 3, numbers are just always going to be very low. personally, I've had days where I had a few drinks and I feel fine the next day. So, you know, is it me that's wrong? That really I might feel okay, but I'm not recovering as well as I feel because of the alcohol? Or is it something that the alcohol specifically is doing to the HRV, which depresses it more than it really should be? I don't know. That is open to discussion. People a lot smarter than me have talked about that, and there's some interesting stuff out there. Whoop does a podcast themselves, and they've had a couple focused on just that topic. We're going to be doing, Ben and I will be doing a Versus podcast soon on that, so stay tuned for that. I guess I'll just say, with regard to the Whoop, if you're regularly drinking, even if it's only 1 or 2 drinks per night, I think it's more difficult to really get actionable data from the Whoop. You know, if I have 3 drinks one night, I wake up, my score is in the red. I really don't know, you know, is that because of the alcohol? Is it because of training or poor sleep or all the above? I don't know. It's really hard to know that. Whereas if you take drinking out of the equation, then yeah, you can probably say with a little bit more certainty, if your number's in the red, you probably are fatigued. Maybe you're still able to perform your workout. Maybe you end up feeling okay. But it's probably, the numbers probably are more representative of something. Alright, you try for 100 RPM, last 5 minutes of this warm up here. Interesting. The cadence is showing on Zwift is way off from what I'm seeing on my computer. So just a reminder that the power numbers that you see are based on my threshold, which is 325. So these are percentages of that. Endurance is set here at 65% of FTP. I believe I have it set at 83% of FTP for the tempo interval. There's a range there. I believe it's 75 to 90% of threshold. You got to set right in the middle. If you're using Zwift, you can change that even on air mode pretty easily. If you see that 100% in the lower left-hand corner of the interval list there, you can adjust that up or down based on how you're feeling. So basically, if you're feeling good, you can bump it up. Not feeling so good, you can bump it down. Now for these tempo intervals, heart rate is very important. You really don't want your heart rate going up over zone 3. If it's slightly above, it's probably okay. It's not going to kill you. But I would rather you focus on efficiency and trying to produce the power more efficiently. Focusing on breathing, staying hydrated, staying cool, making sure you've got enough airflow. Rather see you do the same power more efficiently if you're feeling good. And if you're not feeling good, rather see you do less power. If you have to. At the end of the day, you know, whether you do this interval at 83% or 84%, doesn't really matter. It's not like your fitness is going to be so much better if you're able to do it a few watts higher. But if you're really struggling through it, if it takes a huge mental toll, if your form sucks, you're all over the place. All right, 5 minutes recovery before we start the big set. If you're too fatigued the next day to do your workout or perform well on your workout, those things will make a difference. So don't fall into the trap of saying, you know, the more painful it is, the more gainful it'll be. No. This one is about efficiency. And that's why you will see when I get started here, I'm not going to talk much, because I need to really focus on efficiency to keep that power up and keep my heart rate down. So feel free to pop on a movie, pop on some music, whatever you need to do. Try to execute well on this. Occasionally I will stand up, get out of the saddle, stretch the legs out. Always a good idea indoors, because you don't have any normal needs to stand up, and there's no bumps in the road or anything. So get the blood flowing, take some pressure off the crotch for a little bit. If you're really struggling here, just to hold the power, you can split this up into like 3 by 20 or 2 by 30. Just try to take a short recovery It's 30 to 60 seconds. Get off, get the blood flowing, stretch a little bit. You can hit pause on this workout, and then try to get back on rather quickly. You don't want to let yourself fully recover. A lot of the purpose of this workout is really just teaching yourself to maintain a workload for a long period of time. Things that you can do to try to calm yourself down are just trying to relax your shoulders, take the weight off your hands, focus on your breathing, focus on nice even pedaling. And it's fine to sit up, stretch your head a little bit, stretch your shoulders and arms out. Now I'm going to be cycling through various RPMs, everywhere from 80 to 95 RPM. Just changing it up every 5 minutes. Part of that is expanding my range of comfort in pedaling. Part of that is just dividing it into smaller chunks. 60 minutes is a long interval, so I try not to think about that. Just take it 5 minutes at a time. Alright, let's turn on my big fan here. Hopefully. Alright. There we go. I might have turned it off the last time that I did a workout. If I turn the switch manually, it's going to sort of disable the smart controls. Let's see, I outsmarted myself. Alright. Bring that cadence up to 85 the first 5 minutes. you should notice your heart rate takes a bit of time to stabilize. Probably 5 or 10 minutes. Don't want to jump it up too quickly, but it should stabilize. If you notice that there is upward drift throughout the whole interval, something's wrong. Doesn't mean your threshold's set too high, although it could. Could mean you're overheating, could mean you're not tired enough. I'm sorry, could mean you're not recovered enough. And generally, lower cadence may seem more comfortable for a lot of people. Maybe it will keep your heart rate lower, but it's going to cause more muscular fatigue. And you might start to notice more of that heart rate drift if you have it locked in at, let's say, 70 RPM the whole time. Still allergy season here, so even though I'm indoors, my nose is running. Sorry if that grosses you out. Alright, bumping it up to 90 RPM, same power. As I've said in previous workouts here, you can do this outside, perfectly fine. You do give up a little control, but you gain a little bit more realism. Probably not going to be able to lock it in at exactly the power you want, exactly the cadence. And unless you have an hour-long, uninterrupted stretch of flat road, might have some stop and starts. Doesn't make it better or worse. Generally, I do these in the base period, so the chances are you're doing this when it's colder outside. Certainly that'll make a difference in terms of whether you choose to do it indoors or outdoors. bumping it up to 95 RPM. Same power. And don't pay attention to my RPM rating on Zwift. Not sure what's going on there, but definitely off. Hopefully your heart rate's pretty well stabilized by now. Back down to 90 RPM. Might be too soon to tell, but feel pretty good. Feel a little stiff, muscularly. Might be from some of the strength training I've done. But I also feel fresh. So I might look, you can probably tell from looking at me, some of the stiffness. I'm feeling okay, as my recovery score would indicate. But still got a long way to go. We'll see how the rest of the interval goes. Sometimes it's important to differentiate between peripheral fatigue, your muscles, and central fatigue, heart, lungs, brain. It takes experience as an athlete to learn to really trust yourself. I would suggest use all the tools you have to help fine-tune that. Not to override it. Alright, we're going to be going down to 85. I'm going to stand up. We're at the 20-minute mark. Stretch my legs. Get some blood flowing. Don't want to let my RPM get too low. I'll get bogged down. Also don't want my heart rate to get too high. I'm less efficient here, using more muscles. Okay. 25 minutes in. Bring it down to 80. The lowest will go. Now I gotta focus here. Muscle activation, coordination. It's gonna be a more muscular effort. Don't be surprised if your heart rate drops a little bit. Less of a cardiovascular effort. And notice if you burp, heart rate can go down a little bit. Not that I would encourage drinking a bunch of seltzer during rides. I thought it was an interesting phenomenon, although I couldn't explain it. If you are a doctor, you can give me an explanation of that. I'd love to. Feel free to write in the comments. I've heard it before, but I can't remember. Up a little bit. Back up to 85. And guess what? We're halfway through. This interval's just flying by. Really tough to maintain focus for an interval this long. It's part of the point of it. But I would suggest just take it 5 minutes at a time. Focus on that. Execute well in each 5 minutes. Don't worry about the duration of the whole interval. It's called chunking, by the way. And it's going to be especially necessary for the really high intensity intervals, even though they'll be shorter. Alright, going back up to 90 RPM. Alright, let's bring it up to 95. You can have saddle just a second. We're 40 minutes in, 20 to go. This is where I really gotta start trying to stay focused. My heart rate doesn't creep up, especially at these higher RPMs. Alright, back down to 90. 15 more minutes. Feeling great. All right, down to 85. Stand up a little bit. Got 10 more minutes. Great job. 5 minutes ago. 80 RPM. And I'm feeling good. So, let's see if I can bump. Let's try 101% first. Just a few watts. Go 102. All right, 103%. Big money. All right, let's try 104. All right, 105. Last 1 minute. Not gonna go too crazy here. I could put higher power, still keep it under 170, 171, but focus on efficiency, just producing a little bit more power. Great job. 60 minutes. Got this on a ramp down, so it doesn't get super easy right away. Great job, everybody that followed with me through this boring yet valuable set of tempo intervals. As we progress further, we'll get into some more exciting stuff too. But in my experience, if you can get through 60 minutes at tempo, you can survive in most races, unless they're really hilly. I'm talking about road races here. So, unless it's really hilly, really technical, you can survive. Doesn't mean you can win. But a lot of people focus on the sprint, or the climb, the decisive attack, you know, explosive power, VO2 max power, because those are often the decisive moments. But if you're not efficient, you won't be able to do what you're capable of in those decisive moments. Doesn't matter if you can do 500 watts for 5 minutes or 1500 watts for 20 seconds. If you can't survive. So, you're doing a tempo interval, just like sitting in the pack of a field in a road race or crit. Hopefully you should always be able to go a little harder. You never max out, or rarely max out. It's not about going as hard as you can all the time. Most of the time, it's about going as efficient as possible and doing what you need to do, which is often not getting dropped, staying safe, staying in the position you want to be in, staying hydrated, staying fueled. And if you can do that, then you're ready for the next step. The next step is be able to make the decisive move. That still does not mean winning the race. It means getting in a position to win the race. So maybe that's being able to make the winning break. When I say being able to, yeah, I'm talking about fitness. Having the fitness to do that. Having the strategic and tactical acumen to recognize what that move is. That's a different matter. That also takes practice. And you can't go with everything. You gotta pick and choose. So some of it's luck. But I'm telling you, the people who have more experience and know what they're doing strategically, tactically, their odds always seem to be better. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'm talking about having the fitness to be able to do it. Maybe that's getting in the winning move, winning break. Maybe that's surviving with a lead group over the decisive climb, and maybe that's getting into a position to sprint for the final sprint. Being able to actually win the race, that's really the icing on the cake. But before you get there, you need to be efficient enough to survive until those decisive moments, and 2, you need to be able to make that decisive move. So hopefully you got through this series of tempo intervals. Hopefully we're past step 1, at least on paper. You know, you watch a race on TV, you see a pack of riders going down the road. Nothing much is happening. Looks like everybody's doing the same work. I mean, maybe you figure the people at the front are doing more, obviously, but everybody else in that blob is doing the same. That's an illusion, really. Because that effort, that moderate but not maximal effort, is taking a different amount out of everyone. So by the time it really matters, you see not just what somebody is capable of in that moment, but what all their previous efforts up till that moment have taken out of them. I hope you'll continue to join me on these workouts. Like I said, they'll get a little bit less boring. I realize that there's a lot of good indoor training platforms out there that have some really cool bells and whistles, and some really interesting workouts. And those are great. I'm not trying to disparage those. What I hope you get from my workouts is a little bit of education about why you do these workouts, why they're important, and how to execute well on them. You can always go back, watch them from time to time, follow along if you want a little bit of instruction. I taught a lot of indoor classes. Most of them have been in person, where I'm walking around and talking to people. But even though a workout like this, I'm not able to talk the whole time because I'm doing the workout, I like to think that it's good for you to see me suffering, see that I'm not perfect. I struggle with this too. I wouldn't prescribe a workout that I would not do myself. But as always, feel free to leave your feedback, comments, and questions in the comments. Please subscribe to our channel, the Endurance Collective YouTube channel. We do appreciate it. To get enough subscribers, we can do some live broadcasts. Until next time, thanks for joining me.